Welcome to a community update from the Department of Senior Affairs. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Today's title of the show is Untreated Hearing Loss and the Link to Dementia and Alzheimer's. With us to talk about that is Chrissy Peace, the hearing instrument specialist at Sound Choice Hearing. Chrissy, it's been a while. I think it's been at least 3 years. So
I think a little longer.
Yeah,
but
gosh,
it's been a while.
yeah. We've had you on before, and I think the last time that we talked, I was always amazed about the human ear, the things that you said that the ear can pick up, and it has amazed me. It amazed me, and I remember years ago on PBS, The Amazing Machine, the Human Body. Man, incredible,
Yeah, it is
incredible.
incredible.
So as hearing, and you said this at the last show, and I still remember so many things are miscommunicated by not hearing the messages or communication clearly, and the changes in technology and things like that have definitely evolved and are evolving every single day.
Yeah, yearly we see some amazing, advancements in technology, and we'll talk a little bit about that because I'd like to go into a little bit more about the new technology and how it helps the brain.
Yeah, and it's such a link, man, and people, gosh, everything's at a touch now. Everything. You can get so much information. It just amazes me. How many people in the U.S. are affected by hearing loss?
Right now, the number is about 35 to 40 million people just in the United States alone. That's a lot of people, but to me, the biggest wow factor of that is how many people actually seek treatment out of that 35 to 40 million people. We know now that only about 15% of people in the United States that have a treatable hearing loss that affects everyday life actually seek some sort of improvement for their hearing. And so that's a really low number.
And a lot of that is because, vanity. There's so many things, I'm sure. They're scared. They don't know who to go to.
Exactly.
So there's a number of different reasons why, but that's a very low percentage. Is it getting any better, any higher with the technology? Is it getting any better?
It's just, it's not getting better. We're trying to get the new message out. The new message is about what we're talking about today. The new message is untreated hearing loss and how it can affect you not only emotionally, because we know, isolation and that kind of thing, not being a part of things is a huge impact from having an untreated hearing loss, but now we know that there's physical impacts of not treating your hearing loss. And the biggest one we know now, and we've known this forever, but the study just came out about 1.5 years ago, untreated hearing loss, meaning not correcting your hearing loss, you have a twice as likelihood of developing cognitive decline, which is also known as Alzheimer's and dementia. And there's so many reasons why that happens, but that's a physical impact of not treating your hearing loss. The study showed that the brain actually, in about 20 years, shrank in size that for people that didn't treat their hearing loss versus the people that did. So that's huge.
It makes sense though, because you can still read, right? And you can, but as far as conversation-wise and information that you could be hearing and missing and misinterpreting.
And it's the brain. Now we know it's the brain that hears. Your ears don't hear, it's your brain. So when you're not getting that good, clean stimulation to your brain, that part of your brain atrophies. It actually doesn't get used as much as it should. So you've heard use it or lose it. If you don't use that part of your brain because you're not getting fed the sound that it needs, to understand language, it atrophies. And, that's not something you ever get back. It doesn't come back. And we know now that the ages are between, say, 40 to 45 and 60 to 65. Those are the imperative years to treat hearing loss. Those are the years that you want to treat your hearing loss so that you can get a jump on that whole cognitive decline. We know that now. It's not about waiting until you're 80 years old and asking everybody to repeat. That's too late. You can still get treatment, don't get me wrong, but it's better to do it early rather than later. You have a much better rehabilitation, and that part of your brain gets that stimulation that it so needs to kind of stay with it.
It's interesting.
It is. It
Very, very much is.
Yeah.
Everybody goes and sees an optometrist, right, for the eyes, but how often do they visit an audiologist? How often?
Well, and that's what I want to bring up. The Surgeon General recommends a hearing test once a year from the age of 50 and up. 50 is a low number. I was treated for my hearing loss when I was age 47, so we're seeing it much earlier now versus, our average client now, our average patient is not the 85-year-old person who comes in. It's all these people who are in the job force that need to be able to hear. We know now that not treating hearing loss impacts your financial status. They say on average you make $20,000 less a year. I mean, these are all facts. $20,000 less a year if you don't treat your hearing loss.
Man.
Yeah, that's huge. And so at the age of 50, you should have one once a year. And we do them for free at Sound Choice. We're happy to do them. If you don't have a hearing loss, fabulous. Come back in a year and we'll just chart your hearing progression every year so that if something changes, we can treat it. That's how it should work. Physicians don't tell, unfortunately, or that's not a big part of what they do for overall health. When you went to the doctor the last time, did he say, Ed,
No.
go get your hearing tested? They just don't. And so you have to be proactive with your health and, make that call, get in there, get that hearing test done, and just stay on it once a year. We're happy to do it.
Yeah, I will say this, that I'd had a clogged ear, that I had some problems, but they unclogged it just by cleaning them out. So there's, some...
And we can do that too.
Right.
So if that's a problem, we do that as part of the visit. We check to make sure there's not something physically going on. That's part of the hearing test as well. If there is something physical, we, make recommendations. We help you ourselves. We do whatever needs to be done.
Train people.
Yes.
It was funny though. I want to get to these questions, but I have to say this: that when I went there, the nurse said that sometimes your ears plug up to prevent you from bacteria from getting in,
Yeah.
or something like that. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like, okay. So I'm
Yeah.
not a swimmer. There wasn't swimmers here or anything.
Right.
So your body's just
Yeah, your body is an amazing tool.
Amazing. So
And
what
the brain is amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What age should a person start getting? You mentioned you got tested at 47. So what age?
50.
50.
And I went in at 47 because my family told me I needed to go in. I was in the hearing industry already for 20 years, but you don't wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm not hearing. It doesn't happen overnight. So I didn't know. It's a progression. It takes years of, for me, loud music, it's genetic,
Right.
that kind of thing. So you don't wake up one morning and say, I need to go get a hearing test because I'm not hearing. That's not how it happens. So my family literally told me, Chrissy, you're having trouble hearing. And I was like, no,
You're 47.
Really? At 47. Got my hearing test, and I had a mild to moderate hearing loss already at that age.
We'll
And
get
I
into
think-
that later,
yeah,
but
yeah.
because, we're hearing these guys now from AC/DC and,
Yeah, that was me.
These guys
Loud
are
rock concerts.
going deaf, and of course they've been at these
Musicians.
concerts for years. But,
Sure.
and it's more than, and here's the next question, what causes hearing loss? I'm gathering it's more than just loud music. What else?
Well, it's noise, so there's 4 reasons. There's noise-induced hearing loss, which I feel is a big factor of why I'm where I am today. Genetics, so if mom and dad had it, there's a good chance, you're going to have it as well. Some medicines can give you a hearing loss. A lot of times you can recover, sometimes you can't. And then the biggest is age-related. That is the biggest. And that's the part I think that people have a really hard time with. They associate, being older or getting older. They don't want to recognize the fact that they have a hearing loss. It's a part of life. It's a part of our body that, doesn't function correctly forever. That's the way your body works. And so, people, more than not, people as they age develop hearing loss. It just happens. There's no age definition of when you get a hearing loss. That's why you should start early and catch it early. But, age-related hearing loss is one of the biggest factors. It's just a part of life.
Right, but you're saying that it's happening earlier.
It has
You
happened
mentioned
much
that.
earlier because of our environment.
Other factors.
I mean, you see the kids, with their loud music in their cars and, all that.
Which isn't uncommon though, Chrissy. That's been
No.
going on since, the
Yeah.
50s. What else?
We have people that come in that, and it's not so, we don't see it so much anymore, but, back 20, 30 years ago, people worked in loud environments, machinery, that kind of thing. Of course, now the standards are a lot different, and there's, you have to
Right,
protect your
right.
hearing. But, just noise, even ambient noise, you start losing your hearing in the womb, and I don't think people realize that.
Wow.
Yeah. So
No, I
it's just-
didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Noise,
I don't know
noise.
who would
yeah.
realize that because you would think it's
And
developing.
it's a
rather
slow
than-
progression.
That's interesting. Gosh, man,
Yeah.
I learn so much on this show myself sometimes. Why is it more important now than ever to treat hearing loss? You mentioned the link to dementia and Alzheimer's earlier, but...
Right, and it's something we've known for a long time. The impact of not treating your hearing loss now is more important because of that link, that proven link that, if you don't treat it and you don't give yourself that good, clean hearing, your brain, you're more apt, you have a more likelihood to develop some of those conditions. So not only is it, like I said before, it's not only emotional when you can't hear, because the isolation factor and not wanting to go out in public anymore, not wanting to do those things that you did all the time, go out to dinner, visit with friends. Now we know that, there's another side to it. It's also linked to heart disease, believe it or not, because you have hypertension, you get stressed out when you can't hear.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Diabetes. I mean, the list goes on and on. Your hearing is that important. I mean, the bottom line is treat it when it needs to be treated. Just like everything else in your body, if you fell down and broke your hip, you wouldn't wait to rehab it, right?
No.
No, but people wait even when they know they have a hearing loss. It's just, it's that whole, like you said before, the vein thing, being scared, it's scary.
Or they think it'll just maybe, reverse itself.
And it doesn't.
Right.
Hearing it doesn't come back. I mean, it's damaged and it's not going to correct itself.
Can't stress the importance of what you're saying.
Yes. So more important now than ever, now that we know that there's that link to cognitive decline. Think about it, if you want to stay with it in the game, are you going to be with it if you can't hear what's going on?
Exactly.
No.
And I think even when my ear was clogged, there was a part of the conversations I'm sure that I was missing. So that's frustrating.
And it is
so
frustrating.
Imagine if it's more than a 40% loss or...
Yeah, and you have it all the time.
Right, that's
it never
annoying
gets
to other
better.
people.
Sure,
So conversations missed, and as you mentioned, financial, that's a lot of money, man. That's $20,000 a year that you might be missing out. How does new technology, and you mentioned this even 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, the last time you were on, and I'm sure that it's even better now. So how does,
I mean, in the
some of
last...
the stuff you mentioned last time was amazing.
Yeah, since I've seen you, the advancements have been huge, but the biggest advancement, and this is the coolest thing, I mean, I get really excited talking about this because I'm wearing the new technology. The difference between the new technology versus what's older even a year and a half ago, before hearing instruments were directional, so you'd have to be facing the person you were talking to hear them, because the directional mic would open up and you'd hear it like this. The newer technology listens in surround sound, so it's a more natural, clear environment. I'm getting my full picture of what's going on around me. So if I'm at a table with 5 people, I don't have to turn and face that person that's 3 people down, because my hearing instruments are picking that up.
Holy moly.
And so
it's like
with that,
you're almost like you're regular, not quite.
It gets you.
Okay.
It gets you a more natural, complete picture. That's for safety reasons. That's good to be able to hear behind you. There's all kinds of reasons that's better. Better for you than having to listen in directional. But the newer technology, what's cool about it, they call it brain technology now. It's focused on the brain. And the reason they call it brain technology is if you have a hearing loss, and I can attest to this, so I know exactly what happens. I get in a conversation with a lot of people in a noisy place. I used to get to a point where I would give up. And I would be like, I cannot follow the conversations. You're talking, and then all of a sudden, Sue over here is talking, and I'm still trying to figure out what you said. So the new technology listens
crazy.
50 times faster than before, and it gets you past that point. It gets you 20% past that fatigue point, so you can stay in the conversation. You retain 20% more conversation.
How important is that? I think it's so funny because you mentioning that, it's like, okay, so I'm talking to this person, but I'm catching some of what they're saying over there, and we take that for granted. And
You
if
do
don't
take
have
it
that,
for
you're right.
granted until you
So,
lose it.
Man.
And there's so much more, there's so much faster processing now, the digital processor, that it's able to manage the background noise better. Because, somebody might say, well, I don't want to hear everything that's behind me, but you do.
Christy Peace, hearing instrument specialist at Sound Choice, untreated hearing loss and the link to dementia and Alzheimer's. Wow, man, What incredible information. Thanks so much for being our guest.
Thanks, Ed.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
For the Department of Senior Affairs, I'm Ed Nunez.